All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the First Ones to Die podcast, but we're doing something a little bit different today. This is the First Ones to Die Bookcast, is our official name, I believe. Bookcast.
Yeah, I think that's what we got with.
So Alex and I decided to kind of start this little side venture thing because we both love to read. I know Jerome loves to read as well, but he more dabbles in like the graphic novel of it all. But we are both huge fans of the Book of the Month subscription club, and we were like, hey, why don't we just like pick one of the October books, read it, and then talk about it on the podcast? And so that's what we are doing here today. And so, Alex, what book did we decide to read for this month, our very first month, our inaugural month?
Everything We Didn't Say. It is a lovely book by Nicole Baart.
Nicole Baart.
And from what I read, she's actually a very nice Southern lady who has many other books. She also wrote You Were Always Mine, Little Broken Things, and The Beautiful Daughters. She lives in Iowa and she has turtles.
Okay. Oh, she lives in Iowa, so that makes sense why it takes place in Iowa.
Yeah. She also has turtles. I don't know if that's relevant at all, but you know.
Turtles are always relevant.
Right? Turtles are great.
Turtles are awesome.
That's the first book we read. Off the bat, what did you think of it?
So going into it, I obviously like most of the books, especially the ones that I get on Book of the Month, because one of the reasons why, side note, I love Book of the Month is because one, they just pick great books, and two, because they keep their summaries really vague, which I really appreciate. I don't like to go into a book knowing what's going to happen in the first 50 to 100 pages of the book. So I appreciate that they keep their summaries vague, so you're intrigued, but you also know what you're getting yourself into somewhat. And I really didn't know what to expect from this. I knew that it was going to have some like thriller element. I knew that it was going to have, some sort of mystery element. You can see so from like the visual of the cover. But after reading it, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really liked it. There was a twist and turn, a main twist and turn at the very end that I didn't 100% see coming, but as it was explained, I could see how it would arise. But overall, I really liked the book. How about you, Alex?
I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. Sadly, I wasn't as enthusiastic about it as you. Little background of the book: it involves a character named Juniper Barker. The one thing that annoyed me, honestly, right off the bat, is the fact that the name is it's Juniper, which is fine. That's a name I like. But then she's just got a brother named like Jonathan. And then her parents have totally normal names. Everybody else around her has like a really common name, and then all of a sudden Juniper.
Except one of the things that annoyed me is that the names of the parents, yes, they're Rebecca and Lawrence, but they shorten them to Law and Reb, which I
hated the Law. What person would go by Law?
And then some of the other, like Juniper, her name was shortened to June. Yeah, which is fine.
Another thing was that she went back to, originally she left her small town. She originally went back to help a friend who was ill, Cora, to help manage the library. But during the whole book, when she goes on to try to find out secrets, trying to not give away too much, trying to find out secrets that involved her brother in the past and, a couple murders that happened, the help that she was supposed to give her friend Cora never is necessary and never in need. So she kind of abandons her ill friend that she originally came to town for.
Yeah.
So there was that little like near the end, I'm like, oh wait, what actually happened? Cora, she kind of dropped her. But I did enjoy it. It did have some twists and turns that I didn't expect coming, and it was just like a nice solid read. And it wasn't a long read, which was really nice because some of the thriller ones keep like trying to toss too many twists and turns into one book. This one was like it churned right at the right time.
Yeah,
I think that it was a nice simple read that just help you get on with the story.
Yeah, didn't have too many plot lines that, especially ones that didn't really have much to do with the story. It didn't have too many unnecessary characters, I felt, and yeah, it got to the point, I feel like.
I think there was like main like three plots to the story. Was one was she was trying to figure out what the truth was in the past, trying to figure out what was going on now, and trying to like reunite with her daughter, which I also didn't. I preferred not that plot line because so the mystery Cora is trying to Cora, sorry, Jennifer's trying to solve is
The
that
Legend of Korra.
Legend of Cora. I like that shit. Focusing.
But should we warn our audience that we're going to get into spoilers now?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much we can do without the spoilers, honestly.
Right. Okay, spoiler alert.
So how was it? 14 years ago, 14 and a half years ago, or she was 14 at the time.
I think she was 18 at the time.
No, she
was just graduating high school.
I thought she was 14 at the time.
I think she was 18.
Okay, no, you're right. You're right. See, that's the thing that did bother me in the books. It jumps between the past and the future, so you kind of get a little confused.
Yeah, each chapter takes place between. So one chapter will take place now, and then the next chapter will take place 14 years ago.
Yeah, and it doesn't really give you a warning. Like some books will give you a warning, like, oh, past, present, past. This one does, it just jumps. So what happened 14 years ago, you're right, when she was 18, there was a murder in her town. Cal and Beth Murphy were shot to death on the 4th of July, which I feel like is a main plot point you'll hear in a lot of small town books. It's always on the 4th of July. At a certain point, small towns should really stop celebrating that if that's going to keep happening. And her brother,
in a way, 4th of July is pretty dangerous on its own with those people mishandling those fireworks. So,
I feel like, I mean, her brother in the past was a little jerk, but I would not see him committing murders. And I think it's a little weird that they originally made a child a prime suspect of a murder too. But again, that was, I think they were, of course, scapegoating. But he doesn't, people think he gets away with it because he's not convicted. And also, if you're thought about being a murderer in a town, why would you not leave that town? He stays there. Everybody stays there but her. And I also think that's a little odd as she leaves her infant child with her mother and stepfather to just be raised in Ditch's town. And that it's like, this affected you weirdly more than the affected the person who was wrongfully accused. I feel like it should have a more effect on him, but
for me, I was like, throughout the book, I was thinking, okay, I was on the same page as you. Jonathan couldn't have done this. And it's too obvious. Everyone's pointing the finger at him, but it's too obvious that he's not it because that would be too expected. That's not usually how books work. The obvious person is usually not the person who did it. But there were a few points that I was thinking, oh, maybe this is a bait and switch. Maybe it is the obvious person, because there were a lot things. There were little things, but again, there was nothing substantial. And when they eventually revealed the kind of aspect of he was not being paid for his work for the Murphys, and he might have been upset about that and wanted to kill them for whatever reason. At first, I was like, okay, you don't have a conversation with them. You don't ask for some money or something. You just resort to killing. And then thankfully later, someone, I think it was India, she brought that up to June and was like, how could he didn't do this. It doesn't make sense that he would have done this over not getting paid. So
also he would have definitely just gone to his parents and been like, hey,
they're not paying me.
Messed up. Yeah, this is messed
right. Up. Did you suspect Sullivan, who, for anyone who doesn't know, was June's love interest throughout their time as young people?
Only yes, because in the way the book was forming, because I do write myself, so I understand some hidden cues. Only because she was the love interest, and her life sucks. So like the one good thing, you got to make it worse. It's always gonna be the love interest. But I did like how they didn't. It was that past storyline when I'm like, oh, she was in love with him. That means he was around a lot, something like that. But I did like it when they first introduced him, where she's now, she's now married to Sullivan, or sorry, Juniper's ex best friend is married to Sullivan Tate, and it makes it so much more dramatic because it's like, oh, my worst enemy now I'm married to my past love. So I did
Right.
that, like that little. I just enjoyed that little like tip in there because it was like a fun storyline to me.
Yeah, which one of my gripes is that I don't feel like that was fully explained how they got together because
I just assumed it's a small town.
and that he had no other option really. Because they
They like extensively point that this is a small town. It's a small town.
do.
There's a lot of farming area. The Murphys owned a lot of farmland, all this stuff. So I assumed is when you marry in a small town, you kind of just pick somebody.
That's true. He probably ran out of, he's like, okay, whatever. I guess my actual true love left town and
Yeah,
will
like
never be seen here again.
yeah, in small towns, you like have to get married, kind of right? Because it's almost like I don't know. That's gonna like it's almost like old royal times where it's like I'm gonna marry you to get this land. I don't know if that's actually how it is. I lived in a small town for a little bit. There was not much murder or anything, but it was also touristy in the summertime. So, um, but I think the book was really well written. I did get bored at the beginning. It was a slow introduction. It took a bit of time to kind of pick up the pace. It was about like maybe chapter 6 or 7 that I finally fully grew interest in, and that I was going a little bit faster. She did the Nicole Baart, the author. I feel like sometimes she did use a little bit of cliches from time to time, such as the old love interest is definitely the now murderer, kind of a course. I feel like, but in the end, I enjoyed how she wrote this book. I didn't find anything like lacking too much. I didn't think she was like laying on anything like the love interest part again. I go back to I didn't think she was laying on it too thick, like, oh, they were destined, they were soulmates, since they were a child. They both clearly had moved on, as she had a child and he had married somebody else. So
Mhm.
it was just like there's still an interest there, but it's not something
It's not
that's
going to go
it's
anywhere.
not destiny. So
Yeah.
I did appreciate her not laying it on thick with certain aspects like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I love some of the writing. I can 100% agree with you on it took me also a couple chapters to really get into it when I first opened it and she's getting right Juniper is just basically getting right into it. She's like, this sucks. I'm back here. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a depressing book, but it was a little bit more adventurous than that. I really like some of the paragraphs just like caught my eye. Like I'll read out this quick passage that I tabbed. It's from one of the scenes where Juniper and Sullivan are on the bridge and they're like just venturing through the woods. Um, she says, "It's lovely up here. The sky is darkening to velvet before us, and back the way we came is a watercolor smidge of citrus, tangerine and grapefruit and blood orange spilled across the horizon. If I turn the other way, there's a break in the trees where the train tracks once ran, and framed in leafy greens beyond the grove on the far bank is a farmer's pastoral field." I really like that visual kind of description and using watercolor, grapefruit, tangerine, like these colors that are these descriptions of these colors that you could really sense in more ways than one. I really appreciated that style of writing, and I thought it was it was a very good style of writing.
I think so too. Some of the metaphors she used were very nice. I did like that she kind of added the watercolor thing because a lot of the times when I do read books that are kind of talking about small towns, or they kind of romanticize it in a way with bright and vibrant colors. But watercolors, I felt see can be a little they're bright, but they're a little more duller because the water kind of like what's that word? It makes them a little bit calmer to me, at least in my head. Um, I I did enjoy quite a few passages. I didn't flag any I should have. I did like when her daughter came onto the scene a few times because she was very quick witted, and it appeared they almost tried to keep the past hidden from her, but she was still very aware of what was going on. So when they were like trying to talk around her, she was just like, I know what's going on. I know what happened to Uncle Jonathan, which I giggled every time I read it because I was like, Uncle Jonathan, your sister has a kid. It's gonna be Uncle Jonathan.
I know. I've never been called Uncle Jonathan, but now I can expect what it would be called. Like, except I hope I'm not in his position at all ever.
I mean, it's
So,
always the nice ones, right? Oh, I
well,
did.
and in the end, he was innocent. So, you know.
That's true. I did actually find a passage that like kind of made me swoon a little bit because it was with her and Sullivan in the past, but it was more that it was you know what? I'm just gonna read it. It was in chapter 18. One night, tucked in the bed of his truck, as we stare up at the glittering sweep of the Milky Way. I just like that it wasn't too detailed about the Milky Way, but the way it said it was this glittering sweep. I remember seeing the Milky Way. I've said it before for the first time, like perfectly in Oregon, and it really does look like somebody just sweeps the sky. Um, you can have so many different analogies and like different ways of speaking about that, but just saying a glittering sweep leaves so much to the mind. So it wasn't such an intense metaphor for it, and I did like that. I didn't find her metaphors like really like it's this is it, and that's all it is. It kind of left more to the mind, but it did give you kind of like a gateway to what you should be imagining while they're like laying there in the bed of the truck talking.
I agree. Yeah, sometimes for me, authors can use too many metaphors, and it's just metaphor after metaphor after metaphor. But I think this toed the line well.
Yeah, or they can use like really strong metaphors where it's like, you know, the dress was as red as that apple, and only that apple from the height of the summertime from the Florida fruits, and it's like, dude, calm down. It's an apple. It's a red dress now. Now it's just a red dress.
You could have said all this in 2 words.
You just said a nice red, but now you got really specific. The tree, the branch, the location, everything.
Right, right. So, can we talk about the end and who actually did commit this murder
You mean
or these murders?
Yes.
So, we find out that through a series of events, Law or Lawrence, Juniper's dad,
Just say Lawrence. Don't do that.
Lawrence,
I do hate it.
he was essentially jealous of the relationship, I guess, that Rebecca was having with Cal and potentially other men. That wasn't made 100% clear. It was just made clear that he was jealous. And so he ended up killing Calvin, and um and June is distraught. My first question is, how did Juniper not recognize her father's voice when she was hiding in the barn?
That's a good question. I didn't think about that. I'm guessing, well, you could play it off as fear and intensity. When you're trying to hide from somebody, you're not really focused on the sounds of the voice. But that is somebody she seeked comfort in multiple times and was like, she called him dad even. So that was somebody up close and somebody she trusted enough to raise her child. So that's a good point. She should have been able to recognize his voice. So that one I don't have an answer to. I think it was I can't say about the jealousy part either. The jealousy part comes in really weirdly for this character. I feel like when Calvin and everything, because nope, still don't like it. Rebecca, because all of a sudden it's like he was suddenly jealous of him. It was like, whoa, where is this like coming from? Now it's like this character has like the dark side, but I felt like the dark part of the character was introduced like so close to the end. Like it would have been nice if like you saw little bits of the darkness beforehand.
It kind of
Now
was
it's
just a switch.
yeah, totally. And we're all of a sudden you're just like,
Oh, you're evil.
yeah, you're not a good person. Like maybe there's little bits of like if you got like a little angry or if you talk loudly or it's like we're not like kind of brushed her off a lot more. But he only started brushing her off literally in the last 2 chapters and started doing stuff like that. So I found that weird, just how they tried to change his character so quickly at the end. I will say that much. Yeah, I thought the barn scene was a little weird too. I mean, if you're gonna hide from somebody, why are you hiding in a animals? I don't think people think about this. Animals get spooked so easily. So if you're hiding, don't hide in a barn because the animal's gonna see you in its pit and it's gonna go, "What the hell? Who are you?" and panic. Animals are not a good thing to hide around. They get spooked just as easily as humans.
They do. They do.
But so that barn should have been popping.
Um, go ahead.
What did you think of the epilogue, where they once again are having a lovely 4th of July?
I thought it was essentially like put in place to establish that Jonathan was okay. They had talked about everything, and now they're in a better place than they were before she visited. And even, because they were drifting apart when she left, because they left on the note of that night when the Murphys were killed. And so they had all these years to just like sit on that and think about that and think about what they had gone through and the trauma associated with it. So I think it was nice of them to, sit down and have some sort of like reestablishment of the relationship.
I get where you're coming from. I just found it like
Unnecessary.
Yeah, I'm trying not to use that word, but yeah, because it just puts into place that whole like, oh, things are gonna get better kind of thing. But it's like your brother was still accused of murder. I'm sure people still believe it. This could be a true crime podcast where people still don't trust your brother. Um, Also, there's a part in there that it's like a pet peeve of mine. It's always been that way, kind of, but like I get why people do it. When they start using different versions of your name, because he hadn't used June, and even the author points it out, like, oh, he hasn't called me June in forever, and he's like, you're a good sister, June. It's that whole like, oh, I'm gonna use your proper, given name to show my distaste for you. Well, people I'm friends with give me my proper given name, and it's not said with distaste. So it's always like that. Oh, finally called her June again. Now there's the healing. I that's always been a big pet peeve of mine. So I think that part of the epilogue may have been what ruined the whole epilogue for me. Because you're right, they were actually having a nice moment, and it was showing healing parts, and that they had drifted apart through everything. And this may be a moment where they could start going back together. But that little sentence, I don't know why, it's a huge pet peeve when I read. Just your name is your name. If your nickname is so significant, yeah, if your nickname is so significant that somebody calling you by your full name to your nickname can tell you this, then that's a great tell. That is an awesome tell to have. Well, they didn't call me June. They clearly do not like me. But no, I see what you're saying now. It's definitely a portion that it was not bad to have. It was definitely entered in to show the healing from everything that had happened.
Yeah. What did you also think about the fact that the chapters where it's 14 years previously, it's 14 years ago, were written in first person from June's perspective versus the chapters that took place today were written in third person? Did you notice that?
I did, and I did not like it.
It was a little, I was trying to think of, okay, what might be the reason for it? I thought that maybe there might be some sort of, like thing at the end where she there might be some revelation at the end that we weren't privy to. Well, I guess there kind of was. So that might be the reason. I might have answered my own question, but I was a little confused by it as well.
Maybe it was a way for I think it was more for the author to kind of to make it really see everything through June's eyes. Like you really saw what she saw because it's in first person. I, however, did not like that. I think it was my mom told me when I was little, either stick to first person or third person. Either you're telling the story from their side, or you're being the narrative, or you're being the character. You shouldn't be both. And I agree with that because it'll take you in and out. Am I becoming the part of the character, or am I reading? Because sometimes you read a book to be part of that world, to be part of that character, to be who they are. It becomes, you can see everything through your eyes, and then you can see how you miss things because you're like, oh, I wasn't part of that conversation. That happened with those characters who are like basically off in another room. As to if you're in the narrative, you can follow others around.
Right.
So that kind of bothered me to like, you're becoming the narrative to becoming the character. I felt like a disconnection with that. How about you?
Yeah, same. It was a little like back and forth. I think the reason why the chapters that took place today were written in third person was because she had the knowledge that she did when she left the town of she was a witness and everything. And if we as the audience knew exactly that she knew that, then it would kind of spoil the ending. But in that case, I don't think it was 100% necessary to write the sections from the past in first person. I think the sections from the past could have been written in third person as well. I don't think we necessarily, because we got all her thoughts and how she was feeling and everything from the third person narrative. Yeah. So I think it could have been consistent throughout the whole book and all written in third person. That way it's more suspenseful all around, I guess.
Third person is still such as powerful as, first person. So I feel like there wasn't a need to jump back to almost make it appear more powerful. Because I think a lot of people assume that like, oh, if it's this, then you're, one side will tell a better story, but it's not true. It's the way the story is written, how you write it, and the story you want to tell that definitely has more of the impact. This right. Again just kind of got me a little bit annoyed, but clearly I was annoyed by certain things anyway. So.
I guess do we want to final thoughts? Do we want to give it a traditional First Ones to Die movie style rating, or do we want to do another rating, or do we not want to rate at all? I guess we didn't really talk about this, but
how about we do yay or nay?
Okay,
make it simple, because sometimes you can love a lot about a book but still kind of find a disconnection with it.
Yeah.
Or you can hate everything about it, but be upset because you're like, damn, that was actually good writing. I didn't want to like this book, but it was hell of writing. So.
For sure.
Right. Yay or nay, Jonathan?
I give it a yay. I give it a yay. It's not like my favorite book that I've read within the past maybe couple months, but I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I like the twists at the end, and I like that we were given a resolution, because sometimes that's not found in books where they just don't give you a resolution, which sometimes I don't mind if it's well done, but I like that everything was kind of put to rest and we found out exactly what we needed to know. How about you, Alex?
I think the book hasn't been released technically yet.
Oh, it hasn't. You said it hasn't been released yet?
No, I think we got an early release, and I wanted to get the
proper. From Book of the Month. Okay. Hey, another perk of getting Book of the Month is you sometimes get early releases. Look at that. We read this book before it's been in some people's hands.
Yeah, I believe this gets released November 2nd, so we got it like almost a month early. Isn't that cool? Dang. Yeah. November 2nd. So I do recommend going out and reading it for yourself, especially if you do like little crime novels, something, a little more simpler, but that does have a nice little touch. Unfortunately, I will say the book is a nay for me. only because of the slow start of the beginning. With me, had we not agreed to read it and do this book club bookcast, I probably would have abandoned it a lot earlier. Because I, unfortunately, if you don't have something strong at the beginning, it doesn't matter your middle or your ending, I will get bored. I've abandoned so many TV shows and movies for that exact same reason. And sometimes I try to like stick it out. This one again, it was because we had agreed and I wanted to review it. But unfortunately, yeah, nay, unless it needs a stronger beginning. I did love the ending, did love the writing. A little annoyed with the first person, third person thing, but yeah, it was the ending, ironically, that killed it for me.
Well, there we have it. Our very first Ones to Die bookcast. I think
Hopefully,
it
we'll
went
find.
well.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the first one, right? We could
Yeah.
polish some stuff. Hopefully, we'll
More to
get to a
come.
review more.
I literally read like 150 pages of this yesterday and
Commitment.
100 pages today. Yeah, it was a lot. Um, but with that being said, follow us on social media. First Ones to Die. Email us firstones2die@gmail.com. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll see you next time for whichever our book pick is. All right. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.